Alva station. I remember it cost me $2.50.
Wow.
It took me about
That's big money.
3 months to earn that.
Wow. And
I
dare I
working-
ask what
And I
year
was
that
working
was?
for my dad.
What year was that?
1963.
Okay.
George, are you the?
Yeah, I know. You're a little older than me, Ron. I was only one.
Just a bit.
Hey, George, are you the George that checked into the 10-meter net last night?
Yes.
Hey,
yes,
nice to meet you. I'm Marcel.
Oh, hi, Marcel. Yeah,
Pleasure to meet you.
I looked at your QRZ page, but I didn't recognize you live and in person here.
Buddy, are you cold?
I'm comfortable.
Wow.
Could be worse. You could be in Texas.
Yes.
Oh, that's worse.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey there, John.
Hi, John.
John.
Michael, what do you have for keys and paddles? Or do you just use the keyboard strictly these days?
No audio, TA.
You gotta unmute yourself or so. Well, it doesn't say you're muted.
I don't think he's hearing this.
Uno momento. Yep.
I like that microphone there.
Yeah, here's one I tried to build from stainless steel. So I got that far. See that part and the bottom, and then I start drilling. I don't know whether I can see that. And as before I finish, probably I won't have any drills left, so I quit that project.
Looks like there's
bits.
looks like there's more dicum than there is stainless.
No, that's stainless here.
I know it's a joke. The blue stuff, we call it dicum.
You know what that is for.
I know what it is for. I'm saying you have more of that than you have metal.
Well,
I'm joking.
I know.
Hey, Ted, are you going to have your dog become a member?
Maybe, John. He doesn't hear, though. That's a problem.
I had a dog that couldn't hear, too.
Yeah, he
Can't
can't
hear
hear.
either.
He's a white dachshund. He's very rare.
What
How,
breed?
He's a
how old is
dachshund.
he?
Oh,
He's very rare. He's about 10 years old. He hears nothing.
What?
He
Yeah,
can't-
I know that's tough. I got a
There's Bruce.
10-year-old
All right,
yellow
let's try
lab
this.
that's deaf. Mike, he's on.
I hear you, Mike.
Okay, just making sure.
Mike, we settled for sign language.
Good enough.
Hey, Mike, my wife Jan is enjoying the course.
Oh, good to hear.
Although she seems some of it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah,
There's a lot of material all at once, but we're working at it.
the material is different than it used to be, and it's all front loaded now. So you get the technical stuff way up front. And
Yeah, but we're doing some stuff down in the shop here in my radio lab, and I'll show her some experiments and stuff. Yeah, I think that helps a lot.
yeah, definitely.
Kevin Washington got his call, Mike. He's KC1 OBQ or OQB, something like that. He said he just got his call today.
Yeah, I got the email. That's great. Two classes in, I'll take it.
Yeah, he said he's studying for general now, but helping his wife get her tech. And I say we've got Vanessa down here. We got Wendy. I saw Ann check in. There's Bernard. I haven't seen him since the Fox Hunt group. And there's Bruce, our guest speaker. And you got to unmute yourself, Bruce. If you right click on your name, you can put your call in there too. In fact, everybody who has just their name there, if you right click on your name, you can add your call or take out your last name and add your call.
Yeah, I was just getting set up, and I muted myself because there are times people complain that I generate a lot of noise, which I'll have ample time to do a little bit later.
I figure we'll give it a few more minutes here and then just start a little prelim and then I'll turn it over to you. Right now we're at 21 people.
Ooh.
We were just talking, everybody was showing off their keys and their paddles that they have. Do you have any CW equipment, Ron?
I have a paddle. I have a little training Marchino 32. I forgot what it's called. It's in the other room. But I have a little tester I got from ARRL that and some CDs. So yeah, I work. I try it out.
Good,
I
good.
know most of it. I don't have speed yet.
Oh,
I
a little bit-
got something to show the CW people who are just learning it or trying to improve. This is a paper tape that goes on a instructograph machine that sends Morse code for you. And you can see it looks like a old ASCII paper tape, punched paper tape. It's got the slots and dots to send the code. And this is, I actually used one of these machines when I was aspiring novice because I didn't have a receiver and I didn't know any other hams. So I went down to the local Emporium and rented one of these machines. Now I own one for myself.
I have a CNC machine that still uses those types of tapes.
Yeah, yeah. And I bet you it can't send 20 words a minute. The only problem is those tapes are for the American Morse code. They're not the international.
Well, now that I have audio, I guess I'll answer Larry's question from earlier. I've only got one key, and it's the same one I've always had. It's this old bencher, and the paddles are slammed to death. They don't even line up. But that's the only one I've ever had. I don't do much keyboard CW unless it's in a contest. Outside of that, I usually send by hand on this beat up piece of junk. But that's the extent of my key collection.
Mike, the your bencher looks exactly like mine, including the out of alignment paddles. I think they came that way.
I think that has to do with the springs. The springs don't hold their springiness for a long time. That's one of their traits. I've got one too. Mine's about 40 years old too.
I've really never found found paddles that I could send any better with.
It just depends on the feel of the paddle.
Yeah.
All right,
Depends on your
7:08. We'll give it another 2 minutes, Bruce, and then we'll jumpstart and get things rolling.
Now, so do you have like a business meeting that you have beforehand, or?
No, we call this one of our share the knowledge sessions. We had our regular meeting on the first Friday of the month, and we've got one coming up March 5th. And our share the knowledge sessions we used to do on a Saturday morning when we can meet in person. So we decided to try one in the middle of the week and with you, and we've got one next month with Najam I'm gonna get his call wrong. AB1Z Alpha, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, because I get him confused with you, Ron. And he's
better
gonna talk.
looking.
He's going to talk on Arduino and do a session on Arduino. So you're in one of our first share the knowledge sessions since COVID struck, and judging from the turnout, I think we're going to do some more too. And I just want to say to everybody, if you right click on your name, you can toss your call letters in there, so everybody can see who you are based on your name and call. And I'm going to ask everybody, like I do at the beginning of all the other meetings, to mute your phones or turn off your phones or put them in the other room. If you have barking dogs or loud spouses or kids, close the door or put them in the other room so we don't interrupt the guest speaker. And here, I'm gonna turn it over to Bruce, K1BG. It's all yours.
Well, thank you very much. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some earbuds. No, I'm not going to put the earbuds in. I find when I get the sound and when I get everything working once, I should not play with it because things go wrong and I never figure out how to get them to work again. So anyway, I'm Bruce K1BG. Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. Let me see here if I can, share my screen. Let's see if this works. Can everybody see this all right?
Yep.
No problem.
Good. So I'll be speaking tonight about CW Academy. It's interesting the way this comes up on my my computer. Anyway, I like to start off my talks with a little fairy tale. Once upon a time, there was a little boy who, quite by accident, when he was 4 years old, was introduced to a ham radio operator who lived across the street. And quite by luck, he found and discovered the magic of radio. And he kind of always knew he was going to be a ham. And when he got to be a teenager, he had the opportunity to take a class and get a novice license. And this led to basically keeping him out of trouble, which is what most of his friends were getting into. And it got him focused on things like science and technology and math, and led to a career, which led to job opportunities and the opportunity to meet his wife and have children and have a fantastic life. Okay. And I'm the person that lived that fairy tale, but I have a suspicion that a number of the people who are in on this Zoom class tonight also lived exactly the same fairy tale that I did. And so one of my missions in life is to kind of pay it forward and to try to get as many people into amateur radio as possible and to try to basically spread the hobby as far and wide as I can. So that's why I do the things I do, and that's why I like to give these presentations and teach CW Academy. So we'll have more time for questions and answers later, but that's kind of why I do this. I've been a ham now for 52 years, extra class. My local club is the Neshoba Valley Amateur Radio Club. And my original call when I was a kid was WN1KBG. And that led to WA1KBG. And way back in the 70s, the only reason I got my extra class license was to try to get a 1x2 call. I had at that time not only very little interest in amateur radio, but actually no interest at all in CW. So if anybody has any questions while I'm giving the talk, please speak up and interrupt me because I don't want you to lose the thought, and I want this to kind of be interactive, okay? And we'll do questions and answers and all of those kinds of things at the end. So, CW Academy. This was originally envisioned by the sponsors. We'll talk more about that, as a possible solution to perpetuating the CW mode. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So do folks still do CW? I get asked this all the time, mostly by non-hams, and the answer is, yeah, people are still doing Morse code, and a lot of it. And where does the interest come from? Almost everywhere in amateur radio. And what I mean by that is anywhere where you want signals to go far on less power, CW has a place. QRP, EME, things like backpacking, summits on the air where you don't want to bring computers and power with you. There's a lot of places the interest comes from. contesting, DXing, a lot of the traditional stuff as well. Some of these numbers are a little old right now, a couple of years old, but the mode is still very popular. Whether it's contesting, whether it's things like DXing, whether it's just rag chewing on the air, there is plenty of CW activity that goes on. And you'll generally find it on most of the HF bands, probably 24/7. So, what is CW Academy? I can't see everyone here because the way my screen is set up, or can I? Hang on. Yeah, maybe. Do we have any CW Academy graduates here tonight? Or people who have taught CW Academy or are members of CW Ops?
This is Anne, and I've taken 6 classes with CW Academy.
Okay, so Anne, are you in like one of the beginners classes now?
No, I took 2 beginner, 1 basic, and 3 intermediate classes.
Okay, very good. So we'll talk a little bit about that. CW Academy is a creation of an organization called CW Ops, which is, for lack of a better explanation, an organized group of CW enthusiasts worldwide. The club was founded about 10 years ago. I want to say there's currently something like 2,600 members, and you have to be invited to join, but generally anybody who can carry on a conversation or participate in a contest at around 25 words per minute is asked to join. There's very few requirements other than that. CW Academy itself has over 80 volunteer examiners. We provide 4 levels of training to students who have different skills to begin with. We have 3 semesters per year where we offer the classes, and I know I've offered additional classes at students' requests. And the classes meet 8 weeks per semester. So we do a January, February, a March, we do a January, February, an April, May, and an October, November class or classes. I teach the beginner course. More than 5,000 students have completed this level. It's for the raw beginner. We'll talk more about that. There have probably been on the order of 7,000 total students between all of the different classes. The days and times vary by instructor. I give my students a lot of leeway. I try to find a night that works for everyone. It's not always possible. And then what we'll do is reassign students to different classes. And 4 to 5 students per class is typical. I've had as many as 8 students in a class, as few as 1 student in a class. But typically it's 4 or 5 students. And I'm running a class as we talk right now that has 6 students in it. One of the very best things, one of the things people like, there is no commitment. The classes are free. There never has been any fee charged for these classes, and personally, I hope there never will be. I view it as a volunteer opportunity, and that's why I like to do it. By the way, many of these 80 volunteer advisors that we have teach more than one class. There are advisors that and I shouldn't say teach, they advise classes. Some of these advise up to 5 different classes. So you can imagine there's probably 600 to 700 students any given semester. So an awful lot of people are taking these classes generally all the time. So people are always interested. What's a teaching method? How do you conduct these classes? So the first thing is that we teach the sound of the letter, and we try to get students to understand the sound of the letter. So we teach the letters at least 20 words per minute. I personally have found that faster than 20 words per minute actually works better. So typically we teach letters around 20 to 3 to 24, 25 words per minute, something like this. Something in that kind of speed. And we'll talk about the reason why. We emphasize sending as well as receiving. Again, my personal belief is that if you can learn how to send, in other words, if you can remember the character in your brain in order to be able to send it as a word, as part of a word, then that means you've memorized that character, you're retrieving. What we're trying to teach is something called instant character recognition. And that's both hearing the character, but also retrieving the character in order to send it. We use Farnsworth spacing between the characters. And again, we can start the class 2 words per minute, 3 words per minute, something really slow. When we start out, we give the students plenty of time to try to recognize the character. Instant character recognition is not something that happens fast or easily. It happens over time. And I liken it to the way kids learn the ABCs and learn how to read. The first thing they have to learn is the actual alphabet and the letters. As they get faster, their brain goes from sounding out each letter in a word to recognizing the entire word. And learning CW is much the same thing. When you start out, you're desperately trying to copy each letter down. At some point, you start making a jump where the letters, the recognition is instant, and then the next step is you start recognizing whole words. So we teach in groups. So for the first, I believe, 9 lessons, you get the 26 letters of the English language, you get the numbers, you get different syntax, that kind of thing. And they're taught in with the most popular letters first. So even after the 3rd or the 4th lesson, the students have generally picked up the letters that are most commonly used in the English language. So that's kind of the method that's used. What's needed to participate? There's been a great deal of discussion about this, and this argument still rages on. We teach using a paddle and keyer. And the reason for this is that if you're going to get used to listening to the sound where a character is sent at, say, 23 words per minute, you have to be able to hear it at 23 words per minute. You have to get used to sending it at 23 words per minute. So we typically require a paddle and a keyer. Obviously, you need a computer, you need an internet connection, and a video camera and microphone. These classes, since they've been running, which is close to 10 years, have always been done online. So for us, teaching a class or advising a class on Skype or on Zoom is not a new thing. In fact, what's interesting is that we were using Zooms long before the pandemic struck, and they've made changes recently which have made it far more difficult to use Zoom for CW Academy. But it's probably made it far easier to use Zoom for a gathering like this, which is really, I think, from a marketing point of view, what Zoom is really after. So we get questions all the time on the straight key. And again, you know, we talked about this raging discussion about how do you teach? You teach on a, why not use a hand key kind of thing? And in fact, the first several years of CW Academy was exclusively done using hand keys and code practice oscillators. And the experiment was started with some of the advisors who, quite frankly, at one point were almost ostracized and thrown out of the program. This is long before, by the way, my involvement, but they kept pushing on the idea that their students learned the code not only much quicker, but their students' speed improved to the 20+ word per minute range much quicker if they taught Morse code with a character speed at a higher speed. And so when I talk about this, what if I want to use a straight key? I tell my students, the data, the feedback over time has been that you learn a great deal faster using the keyer and the paddles rather than using the straight key. I know one of the things we see a lot, people will learn the code. You know, when I learned the code, there was a 5-word per minute code requirement. So I learned the character at about this speed, really slow. And the problem is that da-da-da-da, V, da-da-da-da is 3 dits, three dots and a dash, or 3 dits and a dot. And so I would take my hand key and I would go, and by the way, I learned on a buzzer, okay? And so I would send 3 dits and a da. I don't know if you can hear that. But I wasn't learning the sound, I was learning to count dits and das. And when you start speeding up your speed, you no longer have the time to count the dits and the das. You got to hear the sound, okay? So we teach the sound rather than teaching to count or those kinds of things. So anyway, continue on. What if I want to use a straight key? I warn people, it's a trap. By the way, I love hand keys, okay? I've got myself a Lionel World War II, a Lionel J38 key. I belong to the Straight Key Century Club. I've got a Russian Army key. I think there's nothing better than straight keys, okay? I just advise my students, learn the Morse code, become proficient at it, and then you should really pursue all of those things you're interested in. Bugs, hand keys, paddles, it doesn't matter. You'll find what interests you, but I'm more interested in you learning the code and learning it so that you can be proficient at it. CW Academy has 4 levels. We start with the beginner level. This is for people just starting out or who have minimal knowledge of Morse code, or quite frankly, who are really rusty. So if your code speed is under, say, 10 words per minute, 12 words per minute, somewhere like that, if you feel that you really need a refresher, the beginner level may be for you. Students are provided with a lesson guide. You can go to the CW Academy page, which is on the CW Ops website, www.cwops.com. The curriculum is all there for downloading. So if you want to look at exactly what each week's lesson plan looks like, what new letters are being taught on a weekly basis, you can go there and look at the lesson guide. We use a program online called Morse Code Trainer. And again, I have a link to this. And this just is a system that's on a web page that has the weekly sessions in the lesson guide that are in an interactive kind of application. So the student can have basically the website play the letters for them, and they can get used to the sound, and they can do practice on their own. When we meet twice weekly, we meet for review sessions. So I try to gauge how the students are doing, whether they're running into any problems, any challenges. We may go through some drills to try to break some bad habits or try to address some of the issues that they're having. And it's interesting. There's lots of things that people do. There's a certain amount of what I call audio dyslexia. People will get their A's and their N's mixed up. Why A's and N's, I don't know, but it's very common the first few weeks, A's and N's, or they'll get things like their D's and W's mixed up. So, but over time, that kind of all evaporates and goes away. I remember when I was learning, I had my favorite letters, which came easy, and I had the letters that I hated, which came really hard. And I have to tell you, I don't remember what those were now. All I remember is that I had them. I just don't remember what those favorite letters were. After session 10, we emphasize on-air activity. Why session 10? Well, session 1 through 9, we learn the letters. Typically in session 10, we go through the standard cookie cutter first contact kind of thing. How you call CQ, how you answer a CQ, how you give your RST, your QTH, and your name. Okay, and how that whole process goes. And then after that, we start focusing on the air activity. But it's not all on the air activity. And I have to tell you, I've had a number of students who decided they wanted to do amateur radio the old-fashioned way. They learned the Morse code first, and then they got their tickets after. So think about that for a minute and how difficult it is to do the focus exclusively on the on-the-air activity when you have students who aren't licensed. What is expected out of the class? What's expected to succeed? Attend the online sessions. There are 2 every week. Practice 45 minutes each day. If there is one secret to learning Morse code, it's consistency. We don't recommend that students burn out. I used to hear stories, well, I spent 3 hours yesterday studying the code, and I don't feel like I'm learning anything. And my response is, you're probably burning out. Focus for 45 minutes each day, break that up into a couple of sessions or 3 sessions, okay? And it'll come easier than if you really burn yourself out. But I think the expectation is if you attend the online sessions, you practice 45 minutes a day, you should be successful in this program. And I've had numbers of students who said, Bruce, I never thought I could learn the code in a million years. I tried and tried, I tried. And this is different. And why? And my suspicion is it's because the program really expects that you're going to do a little bit of work every day instead of a lot of work occasionally or a little bit of work once in a while. It really requires a little bit of work every day. The end goal of the beginner level is that you learn the characters, meaning the letters, the numbers, and some punctuation. Learn a little bit about head copying and learn to send Morse code. In other words, if you've done the first step, you should be able to send Morse code without referring to a sheet of paper with dots and dashes on it or those kinds of things. Just thinking what you want to send and being able to send it, learning the on-the-air protocols of a basic QSO, and being able to use those skills for basic on-the-air QSO. The basic level is the second level. Now, the basic level is actually relatively new. We found that students were having real trouble making the jump from the beginner level to the intermediate level. And so we filled in with a level in between to just try to develop skills a little bit more so that they can actually advance more smoothly. So if you've gone through the beginner level, you should know the Morse code, but your speed may not necessarily be greater than 10 words per minute. And again, I look back to the old days when I was getting started. As soon as you memorized the code, you were at almost 5 words per minute, and you passed the test, they threw you right on the air, right? With like no preparation. So you should be able to get on the air and develop your skills, but the basic level is kind of try to take you a little bit higher. We focus on something called instant character recognition. In other words, your reaction time, try to bring down that reaction time from the time you hear the character until you recognize what the character is. We also try to focus on something called head copy. You know, I have trouble writing at 25 words per minute, and I can't type much faster than 20 words per minute. You don't want your ability to type to limit your ability to actually listen to Morse code and understand it. So we try to get the student well versed in head copy and only write down the things you need to write down, the things that go in the logbook, the notes you might make about a particular contact. We focus on increasing the skills for conversational QSOs, rag chewing. We introduce the students to contesting. I actually introduce my students to both contesting and DXing when they're at the beginner's level. There are some really good on-the-air activities that are done at low speeds these days, and it's fun to get the students involved in doing those kinds of things. But at the basic level, we focus a little bit more on speed. The intermediate level is the third level. If your code speed is above 10 words per minute and you've developed some instant character recognition skills, this level is for you. The objective of the class, again, is to just get better at kind of all the things we talked about: speed, contesting skills, head copy skills, instant character recognition. They start to work on recognizing whole words as sounds as opposed to just the letters. And this, again, is also an interesting thing. If you talk to people who are linguists, who know multiple languages, they'll tell you roughly how many words they know in a particular language. And you actually don't have to know many words in a language to be fluent in that language. The number is not in the thousands, it's in the low hundreds. And Morse code is kind of the same way. You start hearing this enough and you start hearing whole words coming out rather than individual letters. And they try to focus on kind of teaching these skills. And again, they do a lot more on-the-air activities and try to increase the on-air experience of the different students. And then the advanced level is the top one, right? So if you're up around 15 words per minute, the goal in this is to get you operating at 20 words per minute for rag chews, 25 words per minute for contests, and it's really kind of the higher level. And I think one of the things the advisors for the advanced level like to do is get their students prepared to actually become members of CW Academy when the class is finished. So have them in the 25 word per minute range. So again, I think some of this is kind of redundant. I think I already talked about this a little bit. But anyway, these are the different levels of CW Academy. There's 4 different levels, classes 3 times a year. We have a number of advisors teaching the beginner level that are relatively recent graduates of the beginner level CW Academy. In other words, they start at the beginner, they go all the way up through the advanced level, and then they say, hey, I want to give back to the program. I would like to become a beginner or a basic advisor, and they start advising classes. I have a number of my former students that are in that category. By the way, the advanced level, 8 weeks, 2 sessions per week, about 1 hour. This is similar to the intermediate level. We also have a youth program, and I'm the current youth advisor. So this is only right now at the beginner level, although we've talked about doing this as well at the basic level. It's designed for youth, let's say 19 years of age and younger. We used to say 11 to 19, except that I got a couple of 10-year-olds. Now I have a couple of 9-year-olds. I actually have an 8-year-old. And I don't see, if someone wants to learn the Morse code, particularly when they're young, I don't particularly see any reason or any need to hold them back. CW Academy has had a waiting list at times that was several years old. And when I kind of pushed this program, my argument was that it's unreasonable to ask somebody who's a junior in high school to wait till they're a freshman in college before we offer them the CW Academy class. And there was a lot of agreement on this. So we started having a class where youth participate with other youth. They're in with their peers, and they seem to enjoy the class and pick up the Morse a lot faster when they do this. It's intended to help youth who aren't licensed, to help them get a license. And I've had a number of my students learn the code first, get a license after. CW Ops did a program with MFJ for some antenna discounts, so there are some benefits to this. But anyway, it's really a great program. I got to tell you, I had a QSO this afternoon with one of my graduating students. She's 10 years old. She's unlicensed, but her father acts as the control operator, and she's just hitting it out of the ballpark. She's past 15 words per minute. She's been participating in these weekly slow speed tests that are on Sunday night. She's had several rag chews, and I think her father's problem is going to be trying to figure out a way to get her licensed in the near future. And she's really turned on by this. She's only 10 years old. I find it really amazing. But anyway, we could always use more advisors. So I don't know how many of you listening to this talk are CW operators or are well versed in CW, but we could always use more advisors. Advisors don't necessarily need to be members of CW Ops. You can share your love of CW and help train the next generation of CW enthusiasts. And I have to tell you, this is probably one of the most satisfying activities I've ever participated in related to amateur radio. It's just, for me, a fantastic feeling to tune across 40 meters at night and hear one of my students calling CQ. It's even a better feeling when you know that kid is only, 13 or 14 years old and you hear them calling CQ on 40 meters. And I've had that experience numerous times, and it's really satisfying for me. It's the reason I do it. So if you want to sign up for CW Academy, and again, I don't know if you post these presentations on your website, but I'm happy to provide a PDF so that you can do this. But if you go to the CW Ops website, www.cwops.org, there's a big tab that says CW Academy, and you can find all of this there. If you have questions, you can go to the CW Academy website. You can look K1BG up on QRZ.com, and you'll find that one of my email addresses is QRZ@BlaneFamily.com, K1BG@ARL. Whatever the one is for members will also work for me. So there's multiple ways to get a hold of me. And with that, I'll kind of open it up to questions. I hope I didn't talk too fast or blast through it too fast, but I figured I'd give us time to talk and converse a little bit.
Hi,
Anybody
Bruce.
have any questions? Just
Hi.
go ahead and ask.
Hi, this is George in KC1V. Bruce, you mentioned people having audio dyslexia. Have you had any experience with teaching Morse code to people who actually would be clinically diagnosed as dyslexic?
So dyslexic, and George, I have to tell you, I am not only one of the people, okay, who found out later in life that they suffer from dyslexia. The way I found out was having, when I was at Tufts Medical Center, having my son evaluated, and they took me and my wife into separate rooms and started asking us questions. And about 5 minutes into this, I said to the person interviewing me, I said, "You're not asking about questions about my son, you're asking questions about me." And with that, they smiled and closed their notebook and said, "That's exactly what we're doing." And what's interesting, George, is that particularly when you're teaching youth, you can very quickly find out which of the young people have dyslexia, which of them have attention deficit deficiency, which of them. I've got a student right now who's autistic. Okay, so the answer is yes. You get experience with all of this, and you never bring it up to the student, but you try to figure out what strategies work with that particular student. CW Academy, we don't like to call ourselves teachers. We like to call ourselves advisors. So when we meet for the sessions, they're actually review sessions. The student is supposed to be going to the Morse Trainer website and kind of learning the characters on their own. Our goal is to try to figure out, do they have any impediments to learning? Are there any problems that they're having? And try to either come up with drills or strategies to address those. Okay, and so yeah, we've seen all these different kinds of things, George. I don't know. We have our own groups.io for the advisors, and there's email messages back and forth every day. I have a student who is having this problem. I have a student who is having another problem. I've got a student that they're finding this kind of thing, and all 80 advisors talk back and forth about strategies for addressing those kinds of things. And it's kind of like original sin. Between all of us, we've kind of seen all of these things before.
Well, thanks for that. That's very interesting.
I hope it's not a very long, drawn out, boring answer that didn't convey a lot of information. I sometimes feel like I'm a politician. So.
No, not at all. Thanks.
Was there another question?
Yeah, Bruce, this is Bernard, W1BJB. I wanted to hear what you thought about all the various apps and other things out there. I'm thinking of, I stumbled across Morse Toad a while ago. It seemed like a fun way to learn by ear. If you would recommend those things or not.
So the answer is, here I have this thing, question discussions. I actually have some topics that I'm going to do after we get some more questions out of the audience. But I figured if there was silence, I would kind of ask my own frequently asked questions, right? Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about these. I don't want to, Bernard. I don't want to. I haven't reviewed every one of those that are out there, right? I actually looked at Morse Toad. I was interesting. I have a 7-year-old granddaughter, and I kind of loaded Morse Toad on her iPad so that she would play around with the Morse code. And she wasn't particularly excited and deleted it like the next week, kind of thing. So, but she's 7 years old and she's still pretty young. So I don't know. The one thing I would advise against, there are programs out there that will, teach you Morse code by trying to, drop through one of these charts, right? That, kind of the way you would design a computer program, okay? And while that may seem logical and it may work for computer software, there's no way your brain is going to be able to transverse that diagram every time. There are programs out there that try to teach things like association, okay? You associate a letter with a particular word or a sound with a particular word that will give you the letter. And while it may help you early on memorize a letter at slow speed, again, when you start trying to develop speed, there's not enough time for your brain to kind of do that translation, okay? So those are kind of the only things I would guard against. I'm trying to think specifically of the specific application I'm talking about. And we've had a number of people say, you know, I really loved that program. I learned the code so fast, but I could never get above 9 words per minute. Okay. And if you learn the code and you run into a roadblock at a speed, it's because your brain is trying to do something else that's taking too much time. By the way, that's kind of the way I learned the code, and it took me, it seems like forever to get past 13 words per minute. So, but we'll talk more about that in a few minutes, Bernard.
Any other questions, anybody?
All right, so I'll throw out a few of my own.
Excuse me a minute. This is Ann, N1YL.
Hi, Ann. How are you?
Good. I have 2 questions. The first one is, I was wondering, I'd like to sit in on a level 1 class sometimes with somebody. I've been asked several times if I'm interested in teaching that. And I would like to sit in rather than actually do it for a while. And I also wanted to agree with you that I really love seeing my CW Academy teachers on CW, the CWTs on Wednesdays. I get really excited. Actually, I make a lot of mistakes when I see them because I try to send by hand all kinds of things, but that's my question.
So there's a program that started now called Associate Advisor, okay? So it's for people who are thinking about becoming advisors, or maybe who, you know, they don't feel comfortable taking on the responsibility of a class, but they want to help, okay? And so you have the ability and to volunteer in that way, okay? I don't know specifically how we could connect you up with an advisor who would kind of let you eavesdrop and sit in, but I can certainly pose the question and get back to you.
All righty. I have had K0AD, K5GQ, N5TOO. Is that all of them? I can't think. Those are 3 of my instructors that I've had. And Kurt was an assistant in my classes. And his program, Morse Ninja, and his program, Morse Camp, are worthy of mention of programs for people who are trying to hear whole words.
Okay. All right. So I will investigate that and get back to you. Is your email good on qrz.com?
Roger. Yep.
Okay, good. So I'll get back to you with an answer on that. Was that your first question?
I think that was.
I've been doing the SST every week and calling CQ, trying to go at slow speeds to support my friends in the Long Island CW Club and other people who are going at slow speeds. And I just was curious if at some point you want to let me know any kids who are out there. I certainly spend more time with somebody who's trying to get through, especially on the Friday one, some of the Europeans who are new and in the intro class needed extra time this week.
Yeah, so I don't know about the European class, the European students. I know my students have not been on yet on Fridays, but my current class has been, a couple of them have been on Sundays. And, excuse me? Sorry. And I know VA3 UKR, Maria, She's the unlicensed operator whose father is a ham. She's been making 12 to 16 contacts every Sunday night. N0TO is another one of my students. They're both, well, N0TO is 15, but Maria is only 10. So if you hear them on, call them.
Bruce, I've got a
Hey,
question.
I've gotten the first one, but not the second.
Okay, N0 Tango Ocean, N0TO. So, buddy, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm probably asking the same question over again. Let's say you're not in the classes yet, but you'd like to see what it's all about. Can you jump in on one of these classes and just watch and listen for a little bit?
Yeah, the answer is I don't know. Okay. If you wanted to jump in on one of my classes, I would have no objection to that. Again, I teach the beginners class, which is the very lowest rung on the ladder, right? Brand new students coming in.
Okay, thank you, Bruce.
And I have to tell you, buddy, I have no idea even about the curriculum for the other classes. But if you go to the CW Academy, if you go to cwops.org, the CW Academy website, you can download the general curriculum for each of the levels.
Okay, I got it written down. Thank you.
So one of the questions I always get asked, what's the secret to learning Morse code? Okay, and I kind of hit on this earlier on. The secret to learning Morse code is to practice a little bit every day. Okay, you can't get around that. I struggled with Morse code when I was 13 years old. I would learn a little bit and forget it, and I would learn a little bit and forget it. And it took me, I finally got a receiver and I started listening every day. And in a couple of weeks, I got it. Okay, but it requires discipline. And I can tell with my students, if they miss a couple of days, it shows up right away. And I smile and I'll say, George, you missed a couple of days this week, didn't you? And they'll say, well, I'm really sorry, but I had schoolwork or I had this or I had that and I couldn't. And, I say, well, there's nothing, you can catch up. That's not a problem, but you have to really focus on catching up now. So that is the secret to learning Morse code. It's time and consistency, and that's all it is. Is there a best way to learn Morse code? And the answer is no, there's not. We may advise our students in learning a certain way. I'm not going to tell you that it's necessarily the best way in the world. And I watch all these Facebook pages all the time where there's arguments. This way is better, that way is better, the other way is better. And I'll come back to you and say, the best way is the way that works for you. Okay? CW Academy is just one of those ways, one of those methods. It's proven, it's been successful. But gee whiz, if CW Academy doesn't do it for you, maybe you're the kind of student who is better learning by themselves, okay? And there's plenty of ways to do that, plenty of opportunities to do that. So I don't think there's any best way to learn. It's the way that works for the particular student. Are there bad ways to learn Morse code? And the answer is there most certainly are, okay? And I'm not necessarily, this argument about hand keys really bothers me, okay? And the reason is because I learned on a hand key, okay? And I know all those guys who went through the Signal Corps and all those great CW operators of yesteryear all learned on a hand key, okay? So I don't want to say it's bad. It's not the way we're doing it. Okay. And I do like to focus on learning the sound of the letters rather than counting the dits and the das. So The faster sending kind of gets you to focus on that.
There's also a number of us out here, whether we're attached to a CW training program or not, that are more than willing to sit down and chat on CW with anyone who's learning or just wants to talk.
I'll tell you, using the code, okay, actually using it as opposed to studying it, you learn much faster. I tell people, if you're going to learn a foreign language, one way is to take, an adult education course in French. The other way is to get yourself an apartment in Paris and move over there and go to their Berlitz school 3 days a week and immerse yourself in the language. Which way do you think you're going to learn it, and which way do you think is a better method to learn it? Okay, so it's not work when you're actually using it. It's actually a lot of fun when you're using it, and you certainly learn a lot faster. So I appreciate the comment, Larry. It's a good comment. And I hope you have takers in the club who are taking you up on it.
Oh yeah, there are. I've sat down with a number of people through the years, and whether I'm dictating a paragraph from a newspaper or just rag chewing with them, it's helpful, or listening to them send it. It's helpful and it works. And once you know the characters and you can recognize them, getting on the air, I think, is one of the best ways to be comfortable with it and get over that nervousness about actually making a contact on the air too.
I tell people, one of the reasons I like teaching kids, okay, is because kids are kind of fearless. The adults I've taught, the classic situation, I convey, once you've memorized the letters, you can get on the air. It doesn't matter what your speed is. And I convey the fact that when I started out, you got your license 5 words per minute. You didn't have computer programs. We didn't have code tapes. We didn't have any of these tools. You memorized the code, you got on the air, okay? And there was always somebody, no matter how slow you were, that wanted to talk to you, because none of us learned Morse code when we were still in our diapers, okay? We all remember what it was like learning the Morse code. And if we don't, we should remember what it was like learning the Morse code, okay? So I love it when I find somebody on the air who's just starting out, who's nervous, okay? And I want to help that person. Kids will gravitate to that. Adults will, say, okay, Bruce, I'll take your class. I promise I'll get on the air no matter what my speed is as soon as I've memorized the letters. So we go to session 9, and I'll say, it's time to kick you out of the nest, okay? It's time for you to spread your wings and fly. You know the code. Oh, yeah, but 6 words per minute. I hear people on the air at 30 words per minute. I can't get on the air at 6 words per minute. I'm going to keep practicing until I get to 8 words per minute. Okay, so they get to 8 words per minute, and I'll say, it's time you got on the air. And Bruce, no, I'm going to keep practicing till I get to 10 words per minute, right? And then we'll go to like session 14 or 15, and they'll say, well, Bruce, I signed up for the basic class. I'm going to go on next semester and, build my speed. And my response is, well, wait a minute. We had a deal when this started that when you memorized the code, you were going to get on the air. And I don't have that problem with the kids. If anything, it's just the opposite. They just can't wait to get on the air and make complete fools of themselves, and it doesn't matter, okay? They're more than happy, and I liken it to, watching your children or your grandchildren learn to walk, right? They stand up, they fall flat on their face, they cry, they look up, they smile at mom and dad, they stand up, they fall flat on their face again, okay? Trying to teach adults, getting adults in rehab and these kinds of things is really a challenge, okay? With young people, it's not a challenge, okay? It just kind of comes naturally to them. And so I advise everyone who's trying to build their skills, get on the air every day, okay? Pick a time and just get on the air. And I'll tell you, my favorite time for getting on the air, getting a little bit older now, and I have trouble, sleeping till I could never really sleep late in the morning. But I'm usually up 4:30, 5 o'clock. I'll grab a cup of coffee and I run down to the basement. Okay. It's the first thing I do every morning is I get on the air and I make a point. I do it before I turn the TV on. I do it before I check my email. I do it before I surf the web. I do it before all of these distractions, okay, that serve as an excuse for not enjoying the things I like to do the most, right? So, anyway, when I say this frequently asked question, what other programs are out there? I'm not talking about software programs. I'm talking about things like, I know Ann mentioned Long Island CW Club. There's one that's called LCWO, Learn CW Online. Okay. There are other programs that are out there that people, if you follow the different YouTube groups, they really say, oh, this is the best program, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And I don't want to dissuade anybody from checking them out. I'm not saying there's one best way in the world. I'm just saying I like advising CW Academy. I think it's a good program and had good results. There are people who like LCWO. There are people who like Long Island CW Club and Learn CW Online, LCWO. So I think LCWO is one of these sites where everything's kind of canned and you put in your profile. It not only uses the Farnsworth method, but it also uses something called the Koch method. Okay. And the way the Koch method works is one new character is introduced to you until you get like a 95% recognition on letters that are sent to you. And then they add an additional one letter into the mix. And then they drill you until you're at like 95% on all of the new letters, including the new letter they threw in the mix. And then they add another letter, and they do this one at a time. And you kind of advance at your own speed. And that's the Koch method. Long Island CW Club, my understanding, I've seen a couple of presentations like mine that they have made to other clubs. And I sense they offer a lot of different classes on a lot of different things. Morse code is some of them, and that these classes are ongoing all the time. And you'll get like 30 students in a class some nights, and you'll get 5 students in a class other nights. And whether you participated in it or not is up to you, and you can kind of jump in and jump out as you see fit, kind of thing. I think I want to say there's a membership fee. You have to be a member of the club in order to take the classes, but it's not an unreasonable amount of money. And so I thought their program was really interesting. The reason the CW Academy people like it is because we have these small groups. So there's only 5 students. I get to know my classes really, really well. They get to know me really well, and they get to know each other really well. So there's kind of a team aspect to it, and people don't want to let other members of the team down. So they tend to focus a little bit more on the curriculum. But I'm not going to say I'm offering these other programs because CW Academy may not be right for you. The timing may not be right, all of those things, right? So the next semester starts in April. It's now the middle of February, March. You got like another, 6 or 8 weeks to go kind of thing. From a timing point of view, you may want to look at other things that are out there.
Sounds good. Sounds good, Bruce. Thank you very much. And also, if anybody gets on the air and calls CQ, A good ham will slow down to your speed. They won't come back to you at faster. And same thing with contesting. If you get on the air and you're attempting to do some contesting, a good ham will slow down to your speed. They won't come blasting back at you at 35 words per minute. A
That's
good ham
true.
will, not
And
all
I
will.
and I teach my students how to send QRS. And I tell my students, if you say QRS please, and the other person ignores you, that it's just like a phone conversation that you don't want to get, okay? You can simply hang up on them, okay?
Yep.
There's no shame in that. So all of those things, Larry, are things that we teach. Also teach, in a contest, most contests, the exchange never changes. So if you're calling somebody that's rattling off at a high speed, try to copy one letter at a time each time they send their call, okay? And you fill in the logbook till where you have the entire call and the entire exchange, and then you can call them back at any speed you want to, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how fast they send to you, you've already copied the information. That's the way I started. That's a perfectly good strategy when calling other stations.
Cool.
Bruce.
Any other questions before we shut down?
Bruce, this is Jürgen, NV1Q. The problem is not the call sign. The problem is the serial number.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
that's a problem when the serial number changes, okay? That's the problem when things change, okay? And I don't have an answer for that. QRS is my only answer to that. So
Great. Well, thank you for coming out tonight, Bruce, or joining us tonight. And hopefully, maybe you'll get some people signing up, and even more so, hopefully you'll catch some of us on the air.
thank you for having me. I have a couple of other talks, by the way, that I give. One that's a lot more interesting on entry-level licensing. If you're interested, the Western Massachusetts ARRL website, it's listed there. So anyway, thank you, everyone. If you have more questions, feel free to email me. My contact information is also on the Eastern Massachusetts ARRL website. I'm the affiliated club coordinator there, including my phone number. So feel free to call me. Feel free to email me. Thank you very much. I will stop sharing and send this back to net control.
Well, not quite net control, but anyways, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank everybody for joining. We got 23 people. We're some of us do CW all the time. Some are learning. Some have been hams for a long time and they're still learning. But there's a definite interest there. So the timing was really good. And I know I've worked a bunch of you guys that are already on CW in some of the contests. And it's always a lot of fun. So hopefully we'll hear you on the air, or we'll help you practice on the air at some point. So everybody have a good evening, and I guess we got snow coming in Friday, so get your snowblower ready and everything. And let's see, I think that's about it. The next HRA meeting is Friday, March 5th, and it's going to be on Club Log and what Club Log can do for you. On March 16th, whatever that Tuesday is, I think it's March 16th. Naja, maybe one Z Alpha, is going to be doing a talk on Arduino, and we're going to be hopefully lining up some other share the knowledge classes, and we've got meetings going up through June and such, and are working on next fall also. So, anyways, everybody have a good evening.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Have a good night.
Marcel,
all.
nice meeting you.
Good night.
Take care.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Larry. Good night.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, all. Have a good evening.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Da 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 da.